What is up, guys? It's me, it's Lucas, back in another video, produceperform.com. In this video, I'm going to lay 3 tips on you that will probably change your mixing forever. And they're not exactly what you think. I'm not going to show you like some stupid hack or something, but let's just dig into it. All right, so first things first. Let's hit the screen. So first things first is I actually prefer to use plugins often, except for excluding the vocal, that are simple. So, and the reason that I like that is because it takes away the visual aspect. So let's just say, I'm going to grab a Pro Q3 here. There's too much visual information happening here, as you can see, and I'm going to get stuck on that frequency there, and then I'm gonna want to pull it out or and whatnot, instead of just sitting there and using my ears, where I could grab like an SSL 4K E, which is what I would normally go for, and I can just grab this and then I can mess around with these frequencies and you know what, I'll pull it up, pull it down, and to where I'm actually using my ears. I'm not actually focused on what it looks like, because it doesn't really matter. Hardly anybody's going to see what this looks like, right? And no one cares about your EQ curves. And then there's also something where say this guitar or whatever, it actually needs a ton of top end, and I do this, and then it sounds awesome. And I boost 8-10 dB of top end, and it sounds great. This doesn't look uncomfortable to me. But if I do that on the Pro Q, where so we'll go here to 8K here roughly, and then I go 10 dB. That's not even 10 dB. 10 dB. That makes me really uncomfortable, honestly. And sorry if you hear the sirens. I don't know what's going on. This makes me really uncomfortable. Now, of course, there's always a use for these types of EQs, these types of plugins. Obviously, you've seen me use them. There are times when, you get into a live recording specifically, and you can't find a certain, there's something bothering you about a frequency, and you just can't find it. And then, you can come in here and you can, solo this, this frequency and then find it and stuff like that. So very, very cool. You can always do that, but there's something great about plugins that don't have that visual representation, and it forces you to use your ears. And whenever you're forced to use your ears, you actually become a better mixer, because that's what it's about. It's about what you hear. I mean, think about if you went to paint a painting, right? But you had to do it by sound and your eyes were covered. Think about that for a second. Doesn't make sense. So why do we try to mix with our eyes all the time? And in doing that, you'll probably make a lot less EQing, crazy EQs, and you'll probably mix a lot faster, because once you get it sounding good, which is the whole point, you're going to move on to the next thing. And it's the same with compression. So for example, the Pro C2, if I can type here. So this plugin, super cool. It's an awesome plugin. It's a great compressor. It has all these different types of compression. You have the threshold, attack, release, auto gain. You can even put in the dry signal, and you can do all this cool stuff with it. But see, this is just too much for me. I get a little bit overwhelmed, and and then once you learn all of it, then you start tweaking everything, and you're just sitting here tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking, and it's a never-ending cycle. So instead, on a guitar, what I would like to actually do is put a LA3A in, the CLA LA3A, which is my favorite, 2 knobs, and then you have this switch here for compression or limiter, and then this is just your VU display. And this, in my opinion, this or 1176 or an LA2A, whatever, these are often, to me, sound a lot better than me trying to perfectly dial in a Pro C2. Now, could I maybe get a better result with the Pro C2? I don't know. Maybe. That's up for debate. But this simplifying, using simple plugins to make that decision, get it sounding good, moving on, is actually better for your mixes than sitting there tweaking for hours, because you got to find the attack, and then you gotta make sure it's adjusted perfectly. Now, do all those things matter? Yes. Should you understand all those things? Yes, as well. But here's the thing. Ultimately, we're trying to produce something, and this channel is focused on producing a live worship recording for the Lord, right? So people can meet the Lord, they can have a moment with the Lord, and to me, I don't want to get all convoluted with that. I want to feel it. And if you guys go back to one of my other videos, you'll actually see one of the main steps that I do to get prepared for a mix. And this is why, because I don't want to be so convoluted with all these little decisions, because ultimately it doesn't matter as long as the mix sounds good and feels good, and whoever's listening it has a moment, just a moment with the Lord. Like, that's what matters. So yeah, just use simpler plugins. You don't have to go in and do all this. Honestly, the most of the time I use like a Pro Q3 or something similar to that is when I'm editing dialogue for like a video or something, because I want it to be like, it has to be pinpoint perfect, that, it has to stick out. Anyways, number 2, this is going to be super controversial, and I'm okay with that. You need to mix you need to mix on what you listen on. So what that means is, what do you actually listen to music on? If you think about it, we listen to music often in our cars, or maybe with a certain pair of headphones at home or something like that. Don't get me wrong, I listen to music on my speakers when I'm in the studio, but often I'm editing a video or a audio or something, and so it's like I can't even sit here and listen to stuff. I try to when I'm getting ready for the day, or at the end of the day, maybe I'm doing some admin work for my company, but like most of the time I'm not actually listening on these. And so it's actually funny that this whole industry is built off of like, buy the biggest and most expensive studio monitors, and like, make and it's going to make a huge difference in your mixes. I actually disagree. I don't think you need to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars on studio monitors. I am wholeheartedly committed to you just getting to know your room and your speakers and your headphones or whatever you mix on the best that you possibly can, and then you'll get great mixes no matter what. Because I know so many people, especially in the industry, who mix on $400, $500, $600 pair of studio monitors, and they get killer mixes, better mixes than mine. And I mean, that's not saying much, but like, seriously, like, you don't need to go above and beyond. And even sometimes, so for example, just for me, I listen to a lot of worship music in my car. I love to, like, if I'm driving like 20 or more minutes, I like to throw in some worship music or maybe a podcast. And so I will often sometimes either export my mix, or I'll take my laptop down and plug it into the aux port on my car to actually listen to it, because since I'm listening to all these mixes all the time, these professional mixes in my car, I know what my mix needs to sound like. And so if there's something weird happening in the mid-range or the low end, or which is usually where I struggle personally, then I'm like, oh, it reveals itself in the car because I am listening in there all the time. And then you guys are going to laugh at me, but sometimes, not sometimes, it's almost every mix now, I will actually throw on my AirPods. Don't make fun of me. But here's the thing is, I listen to these every day. When I go to the gym, if I'm taking phone calls, if I'm trying to just get some normal work done, I'm sitting in a coffee shop and I just need to get some work done, stuff that doesn't involve, intricate editing or mixing, anything like that. I have my AirPods on because they're great, they're convenient, and especially when I'm in the gym, I have it blasted with worship music or a podcast. And so I know exactly what like Bethel's mixes sound like on these. And so sometimes I'll throw these in, and it will reveal funny things in my mixes because I listen to those all the time. So I don't know if you guys have a certain pair of headphones that you listen to music on, or a certain speaker system at home, whatever it is. I actually encourage you to start mixing with those on there. Now don't spend the whole mix on there. Like I don't mix on these 100%, but I will throw these on a little bit into the mix and be like, okay, does this sound like how I'm planning on it to sound? Because that'll be a game changer for you, because you know what those sound like. All right, and then last but not least, number 3. Most people use reference tracks wrong, so I'm going to teach you the right way to use reference tracks. So here's what I do: is I take 3 reference tracks. And if you don't know what a reference track is, it's a final, fully produced mix, already released, that you think just sounds killer, and you want your mix to sound similar to. And so what I do is I take 3, and this is what I do. This is what I do almost every single time, unless I'm stuck and I need to change things. Is I take a mix from Bethel, a mix from Upper Room, and a mix from The Belonging Co. Because those are my 3 favorites when it comes to mixes and worship music and stuff. And I will use those as my main 3 references. And I listen to those before I start mixing. And guess how I listen to them? I don't sit there and listen to them and pull each thing apart. I am listening to where the high end is, where the low end is, and then where the mid range is in the mix. Now, what a lot of people do is they start to listen to like every little detail in there. Stop doing that. That is going to depress you, because the thing about them is like they've been doing this for so long. They know how to capture the mix perfectly on the front end. We don't have the resources that they have. We don't have all the microphones of the performers that they have. And so stop committing to that. Just whenever you're listening to these reference tracks, listen to where the low end is, listen to where the high end is, listen to where the mid range is, and then start to match that in your mix. And do not listen to anything else. If you're listening for more than like 10, 20 seconds of each of those mixes, then you're starting to get into the finer details that is completely different. Like a guitar track that I record for a live recording here in Southern Illinois is going to be so different sounding on the front end than what Bethel does at their campus, because they've got real amps, and I'm usually working with like a Helix or a Kemper or a Quad Cortex or something like that. And it's just totally different, and a totally different player, totally different guitar. So don't get so minute on like the guitar tone or something like that. You have the guitar tone in front of you and it sounds awesome. But what you're focusing on is like the actual big picture of the mix, not the small minute details. And then do that first. And then as you go throughout the mix, just keep referencing it. So like I'll get done with a few steps. And then like same with for example, the lead vocal. Whenever you are listening to say like you have a female lead in your song that you're mixing, you are listening to a female lead of a Bethel song. Don't compare the actual overall quality, because that's already mastered. It's already fully mixed. Compare how bright is that vocal? How much body does that vocal have? How much mid-range does that vocal? What does it not have? Like, did they pull a lot of 1K out to make it sound smoother? What frequency is it missing so it's not so harsh? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. The big picture of the vocal, not the vocal itself. So those are like the 3 tips that I'm telling you, it'll change your mix. If you simplify, if you mix on what you actually listen on, and if you actually use reference tracks the right way, I'm telling you, your mixes will change dramatically, especially as time goes on, because you'll learn a little bit at a time, a little bit more at a time, a little bit more at a time, and you'll just get so much better, so much quicker. And so drop below. Comment down below what was the tip that got you the most, because for me it's whenever I stopped mixing with these complex plugins, it really changed my life, because I focused on what I was hearing, not what I was seeing and hearing. And so bonus tip: close your eyes sometimes. Close your eyes, and what does the mix actually need? And that's also a great time for you to ask the Lord, hey, what does this mix need? What does this mix need so that someone can feel your presence? That's a good question. It's great. All right, anyways, down below, the 5-part framework to getting professional sounding live worship recordings. Pick that up below. And also let me know what videos you guys want me to do on. If these videos are helpful, I genuinely just want to help you guys and further the sound of the Lord. I think that's it. Love you guys, and I'll see you next week.